Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hey Jason, how are you today?
Not too bad. Welcome to Uncover, guys. We're going to be focusing on guilt today. It is basically the yes to you, and it's the decision maker that actually gives you the opportunity to create a really balanced and free life.
So how does the world usually or typically look at guilt?
Guilt's usually, I have to look after every single person except for myself. So anytime that we want to make a decision or someone asks us to do something, we actually feel this feeling of guilt that we have to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do say yes, there's something inside of us that's building another emotion that's building, and it's resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And resentment's very difficult because each time that we say yes and we actually want to say no, guilt is the thing that's actually driving a yes. And you can see it with people. So many people get burnt out, get exhausted, don't know how to fit in their time, and they've got all this guilt running and they just don't know what to do with it. So they have to say yes, and they end up getting sick. So this is a take 2 of this guilt, by the way. So
yeah.
We had a sound go, so I feel a little bit guilty that we have to do this again. Because we shouldn't have. There was a mistake on my part with the batteries. So what I want to explain here is that a lot of types of people that I've met are people with breast cancer. So what I realised, the type of person who had breast cancer was overly kind, overly caring, overly nurturing, overly supportive, and they didn't know how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I worked with a breast cancer person, they had a certain type of personality to me. And maybe I'm wrong, but this is just what I kept seeing. So every time a breast cancer person would come along, I'd say, okay, you give out to everybody else. You're actually worried about how they feel about your cancer, right? So they're not even concerned about themselves. They're even concerned about how everyone is feeling about their cancer that they've gotten.
Wow.
So interesting to see the psychology. And then I was just like, oh, they're all the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful humans who, the breasts are about feeding a baby, right? That's what they're for. So when you understand breast milk is the purest form of anything food-based. It's liquid gold for a baby. Mm-hmm. Has every single nutrient that a baby needs. So if we're looking at that, it's like giving that nurture, giving that purity, giving that absolute love away because we're guilty of saying no.
Mm-hmm. So it does sound like a lot of parents and particularly mothers would have that.
Yeah, so it's more of a female thing. Guilt, guys can go, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And girls, quite often they'll go, yeah, I'm doing that and I don't really want to do that, but I've actually said, and I feel burden responsible, so I said something that I didn't really want to do and I'm going to have to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just chatting to a person around this about, her responsibilities. It's way too much on and everything going on, just feeling like everything is too much. And I was just like, wow, this is really, really interesting that everything is too much when, it really didn't have to be too much. It's just the overburden of that person, and guilt was the reason why she was doing it all the time. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, I feel guilty. And it's so interesting that guilt forces a yes out of us when we need a no. And then eventually this hurricane of resentment and anger on the inside. And when that unleashes, I've got all this stuff on board. I've got to do all these things. You're not supporting me. I feel used by you. All of these things pop up into the verbalization when the person's had enough.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's the responsibility of the person who keeps saying yes to stop saying yes.
Yeah.
Right? So guilt is a yes detector for you. That's how you've got to think about it, guys. You've got to make it a yes for you. And if you make it a yes for you, you're never going to walk away from situations. You'll be able to know where your yeses and where your nos are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because a lot of really kind people, you won't lose your role, which is to be kind and caring, because that's what guilty people have. People who don't have guilt can be narcissistic in their nature. It doesn't mean you're going to be an arsehole. It just means you're going to be really clear with how you want to help yourself and how you want to help others. So imagine if all the guilty people actually looked after themselves as much as they did look after others.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be phenomenal.
Oh yeah, they'd be like the happiest people.
They would be, because the kindness that a guilty person brings to the table is just what humanity needs right now. That they need to actually put, like as we say, as we get taught when we're on an aeroplane, we have to take our COVID mask off if there was a thing, but we have to put the oxygen on ourselves first before we tend to anybody else, including our kids. So that's what's really, really important. And I'm one of those people who looks after everyone before myself. I don't do it out of guilt though.
You do it out of care.
I do it out of care, and that's why I don't burn out. I don't have resentment. I do it out of a care, and that care that I give to others, I actually get in return.
One interesting question that I just thought about was, say, for example, not so much guilt like about others, but about things that you're doing. Say you have committed to exercise 3 times a week and then you only do 1 time or something like that, and you feel guilty and kind of disappointed as well with yourself that you didn't do these things, like or you're like, I really, on the weekend you're just like, I really just want to go on this hike today that I wanted to do for ages, but I've got all these things that I have to do.
Yeah.
And if I don't do them, I feel guilty.
That's
right. What do you think about that?
Well, look, I think what we've got to learn to be able to do around this is learn how to prioritise what's right for us as well. So if you want to go on that hike and you need to go on that hike, go on the hike. It's really important that we figure out what's actually going to create a really good balance for us. So, quite often the exercise is one of those major things where we go, okay, I said I was going to exercise 3 times a week and I'm only doing it once a week, and you feel guilty, and then you eat bags of chips for it.
Yeah.
Right? So what you've got to learn to be able to do in situations like this is to cut yourself some slack about and get your priorities right. So then if you do miss a day or you miss a week or whatever, you don't feel guilty about your choices. You just get back on the horse and just pare back a little bit, because you might be having a time where you just can't put that effort in. You might not be feeling so good, even though we do feel good after exercise. Sometimes just getting in that gym can be hard, or going on that hike. So we've got to cut ourselves some slack when it's something that we've said that we're going to do that's actually going to be good for us, that we feel guilty about not taking those steps. And I think that also comes down to that same thing. You're guilty of actually prioritising yourself. So it's the same sort of thing. When it comes down to the things that are good for you to do, or you feel guilty about letting someone else down in what you do, you've got to actually know that we're always going to let people down, and we're going to let ourselves down, and we've got to give ourselves permission to get that routine right and spend time getting that perspective right around it. It's a really good question, and we've got to have that perspective, because beating yourself up over being guilty, because that's what it does. Like you're beating yourself up or a situation up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at it as a prioritization thing, and you make it, okay, what am I guilty of? Write your list of the things that you're guilty of and start focusing on the things that you can achieve, that is manageable, that is not too big for you right now, that you can make sure that you can have momentum with. So let's say it's going to the gym. If you say, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week, and you only go one, you'll stop going. So you give yourself some slack around that. So you say, okay, I'm going to go do the gym once a week and build it up. And then if you have time where you don't go, which is me at the moment, I've been doing my usual exercise. I'm in that place where I'm starting to go, okay, it's time for me to get in, but I don't feel guilty about not doing the gym.
It's really interesting, and I guess that's also like a habit thing as well, to build that habit in.
And I think that's what you've got to do with your guilt habit, is actually build it into your habit basis, and put yourself into that alignment. So then you're really focusing on building your habits in a really healthy way and using guilt as an alignment detector to say, okay, what do I need to do that's really healthy for me? And guilt can really help you align to know what's right for you to do and what's not. Because if you do anything out of guilt, you're going to actually feel overwhelmed, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel regretful, you're going to feel all sorts of things. Really important to know how to master this particular emotion.
That's really cool. So what do you do when you feel guilty personally?
When I feel guilty, I don't often feel guilty, to be honest. I don't have it necessarily running. Let me just think about, I don't necessarily have it running very much. So if I think about it, if I have it, I would just look at it and say, okay, what have I got to do that's the right thing to do in the situation? And that's why I don't have guilt very much.
Because you do that all the time.
I'm looking about what's going to be the right thing to do given the situation.
That's really, really cool. So what would be like the one piece of advice that you could give the listeners to, when their guilt comes up, or when they find themselves making decisions out of guilt? Okay,
look, one decision I think that you can make if you're a yes person is start halfway, because if you say no, you're going to be overridden with a whole bunch of feelings and anxious and feeling bad for the situation. So what you want to do is, if you've got to make a decision and someone is in front of you that you've got to say yes or no to, then basically what you want to do is say, can I have a think about it? So then you can sort of sit back and say, is this the right thing for me to do? Yes or no? And then you can say yes or no a little bit later. So that's sort of a halfway measure until you feel really comfortable. My wife's amazing. She doesn't have guilt running at all. So she's just like, I want to do this, I don't want to do it. She's very, very clear with her decision making. Okay, so you've got to be clear and pull your I don't know out. I'm not sure about this, let me make a decision a little bit later. Then you'll be able to be clear on what's going to work for you and what's not.
That's a really good piece of advice. Amazing. Well, thank you really very much for this chat. That was really insightful.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, if you wanted to watch us, our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. If you have someone that you know is an ultimate yes person, get them to watch this. Listen to this either way, and so they can get a little bit of insight of how to use yes as an alignment detector to be positively selfish in a really, really healthy way, so you don't end up burning out and getting unwell, or a friend of yours doesn't feel burnout or gets unwell simply because they're running yes-based guilt. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.